In March 2012, the body of 23-year-old Amara Hayes was found in a luxury hotel room in downtown Los Angeles. An investigation uncovered the shocking double life of renowned megachurch pastor Malachi Grant. In September 2010, at Kingdom of Light Ministries, located in the heart of Beverly Hills, California, a chain of events began that would unravel the secrets of an affair, manipulation, and murder, ultimately bringing one man's empire crashing down. Amara Hayes was a woman on a mission. At 23, she was chasing her dreams with a determination that inspired everyone around her. Life had never been easy for her, but she refused to let that define her future. Raised in South Central Los Angeles, Amara grew up in a broken home. Her father, an ex-convict, was rarely around, and her mother battled addiction. By the age of 10, Amara had already learned to navigate life on her own, often taking care of her younger siblings, while her mother disappeared for days at a time. It was a tough life, but Amara's spirit was unbreakable. In her teens, Amara found an unexpected source of hope. A friend from school invited her to a youth service at Kingdom of Light Ministries, a megachurch that had become famous across Los Angeles for its glitz, glamour, and powerful sermons. The church was a world away from anything Amara had ever known. The sanctuary sparkled with gold accents, chandeliers hung from the high ceilings, and the music from the choir could move anyone to tears. At the center of it all was Pastor Malachi Grant, a man whose presence commanded the room. His words were electric, filled with hope and promises of a brighter tomorrow. For the first time in her life, Amara felt seen. Malachi noticed her during that first service and made a point to greet her afterward. He was kind, charming, and charismatic, telling her that she had a light the world needs to see. Those words stuck with her. She began attending regularly, finding solace and purpose in the church's bustling community. By the time she was in college, Amara had become a fixture at Kingdom of Light, volunteering for youth programs, organizing events, and even acting as a mentor for younger girls who reminded her of herself. But her connection to the church wasn't just about faith. Malachi became her mentor, guiding her through difficult decisions and encouraging her to pursue her master's degree in social work. He often told her that she had the power to change lives, and Amara believed him. Over time, though, their relationship began to shift. Malachi's attention felt different, more personal, more intense. It started with small things, like private meetings in his office to discuss her future, or late-night calls under the guise of checking in. By September 2010, Amara found herself drawn into something she didn't fully understand. Malachi wasn't just her pastor anymore. He was someone she deeply admired, someone who had given her hope when she needed it most. But beneath his polished words and encouraging smile, Malachi was a man with secrets. His kindness turned into control. He wanted to know where she was, who she was with, and how she spent her time. At first, Amara thought it was his way of caring, but it became suffocating. At the same time, Malachi maintained his perfect public image. He was married to Vanessa Grant, a woman many admired almost as much as Malachi himself. Vanessa was a former gospel singer with a voice that could stir souls, and together they were seen as a beacon of love and faith. The church often referred to them as the Royal Family of Faith, a title they embraced. They hosted lavish charity events, appeared in glossy magazines, and posted family photos that painted a picture of absolute harmony. But Amara, now entangled in Malachi's life, saw cracks in that picture-perfect facade. By June 2011, the relationship between Amara and Malachi had fully crossed the line. What had started as mentorship had spiraled into a secret affair. It wasn't something Amara planned or even wanted, but Malachi had a way of making her feel special, chosen, even loved. Yet the guilt weighed heavily on her. She began distancing herself from her friends at church, fearful they would notice something was off. She avoided Vanessa at all costs, though the woman seemed oblivious, always smiling and gracious whenever they crossed paths. The turning point came in January 2012, a cold and rainy evening that seemed to reflect the chaos in Amara's life. She had missed her period, and after weeks of denial, she finally took a pregnancy test. The result was positive. For hours, Amara sat in her small apartment, staring at the test, her mind racing with fear and uncertainty. What would she do? What would Malachi say? And what about Vanessa? The thought of the scandal terrified her, but the idea of raising a child alone was even more daunting. When she finally mustered the courage to tell Malachi, she hoped he would reassure her, that he would promise to be there for her. Instead, his reaction was far from what she expected. They met at a quiet cafe just outside of Hollywood, a spot they often used for private conversations. Malachi was calm at first, asking her to explain how she knew for sure. But as the reality of her words sank in, his demeanor changed. He wasn't the kind, understanding man she had once admired. Instead, he became cold, calculating, even angry. Amara noticed how he clenched his jaw, how his hands tightened around his coffee cup. He told her that this pregnancy couldn't happen, that it would destroy everything he had built. "It's not just about me," he said, his voice measured but icy. "It's about the church, my family, the thousands of people who look up to me. You have to think about them." There was no talk of support, no offer of help, only fear of what her pregnancy meant for him. By the time they left the cafe, Amara felt more alone than ever. Malachi's words played over and over in her mind. He didn't see her as a person. To him, she was a threat, a liability, something that needed to be dealt with. For the first time, she began to question everything about their relationship. Was any of it real? Or had she been a pawn in his carefully constructed image all along? As the weeks passed, Amara's fear grew. Malachi became more distant, but also more controlling. He began showing up unannounced, insisting they talk about her next steps. He never explicitly told her what to do, but his intentions were clear. He wanted her to make the pregnancy disappear. The situation reached its breaking point in February 2012. Amara, feeling trapped and desperate, confided in a close friend from her college program. She didn't give all the details, but shared enough for her friend to realize the danger she was in. The friend urged her to walk away, to leave the church, and never look back. But for Amara, it wasn't that simple. Malachi was powerful, connected, and relentless. She felt like there was no escape. By late February, Amara knew she had to make a decision, but she also knew one thing for certain. Malachi would do whatever it took to protect himself. By late February 2012, the cracks in Malachi Grant's carefully crafted life began to widen, threatening to shatter the image he had spent years perfecting. His wife, Vanessa, had always suspected that there was more to Malachi than what he showed the world. She wasn't blind to the way women, especially younger ones, were drawn to him. She wasn't deaf to the whispers that followed him wherever he went. But Vanessa, always poised and graceful, chose to ignore the signs. She had learned to bury her doubts deep within her. After all, their marriage was more than just a union. It was the foundation of their public empire, the cornerstone of the church's success. But on the morning of February 24th, 2012, Vanessa's resolve was tested in a way she never anticipated. While preparing breakfast in their sprawling Beverly Hills home, Malachi had left his phone on the kitchen counter, a rare lapse in his otherwise guarded behavior. Vanessa, curious but hesitant, glanced at the screen. A text from a number she didn't recognize lit up the display. Its content was brief and vague, but it sent a chill through her. The message read, "I can't keep doing this. We need to talk. Amara." Vanessa's heart sank as realization dawned. She had heard the name Amara before. Malachi had mentioned her casually as a young church volunteer, a bright soul with a lot of potential. But now, Vanessa saw the name differently. Her instincts, honed over years of navigating her husband's duplicity, screamed that this was something more. In the days that followed, Vanessa couldn't shake the feeling that her life was unraveling. She began noticing other signs, how Malachi avoided her gaze when she brought up his late nights, how his tone grew sharp whenever she asked questions about the church. On February 26, 2012, while Malachi was at a leadership retreat, Vanessa searched his study. Hidden in a drawer beneath layers of sermons and receipts, she found a torn piece of paper with Amara's name scrawled on it alongside an address. It was enough to confirm her fears, though she wasn't ready to confront them yet. Meanwhile, Rachel Fuller, Malachi's personal assistant, was becoming increasingly entangled in his deceit. Rachel was fiercely loyal to Malachi, viewing him as a mentor and even a father figure. She had dedicated years of her life to serving the church and believed deeply in Malachi's vision. So when he approached her on February 28, 2012, visibly distressed and claiming that Amara was out to destroy the ministry, Rachel didn't hesitate to believe him. Malachi spun a story, painting Amara as an unstable young woman who had fabricated a scandal to tarnish his reputation. He insisted he needed Rachel's help to handle the situation discreetly for the sake of the church. Rachel was uneasy, but trusted Malachi implicitly. Over the next few days, she became his confidant and accomplice. On March 3, 2012, Malachi revealed that he had arranged a meeting with Amara at a luxury hotel in downtown Los Angeles. He told Rachel it was to calm things down and make Amara understand the damage she could cause. Rachel, though hesitant, agreed to be on standby, ready to assist if things got out of hand. For Amara, those days leading up to the meeting were filled with dread. Malachi's behavior had grown erratic. He called her at all hours, demanding to know where she was and who she was with. She noticed cars idling near her apartment at odd times and felt eyes on her when she walked through campus. On March 4th, 2012, she confided in her best friend, Tasha Clark, telling her about the emotional toll Malachi was taking on her. She left out the details of their affair and the pregnancy, fearing judgment, but her fear was evident. Tasha urged her to cut ties with Malachi and go to the authorities, but Amara felt trapped. She didn't know who to trust or how to escape. On the night of March 5th, 2012, Malachi lured Amara to the hotel under the guise of discussing financial support for her education. Amara, desperate for some kind of resolution, reluctantly agreed. The suite Malachi chose was extravagant, but eerily isolated. When she arrived, the atmosphere was tense. Amara tried to keep her composure, but the conversation quickly turned confrontational. Malachi accused her of threatening his family and the church, twisting her words to make her feel like the villain. As the argument escalated, Malachi's demeanor shifted. His calm, composed exterior gave way to something darker: anger, paranoia, and desperation. In a fit of rage, he lashed out, grabbing Amara by the throat. The struggle was brief, but brutal. When it was over, Amara lay lifeless on the floor, her bright future extinguished in an instant. Panicked, Malachi called Rachel. By the time she arrived at the hotel, in the early hours of March 6, 2012, he had already begun cleaning the scene. Rachel was horrified, but too deep in Malachi's web to walk away. Together, they meticulously erased any trace of Malachi's involvement, disposing of evidence and ensuring that no fingerprints were left behind. Rachel's hands trembled as she scrubbed surfaces, her mind racing with doubts. As they left the hotel before dawn, neither spoke a word. But the weight of what they had done hung heavy in the air, a silence filled with guilt, fear, and the realization that there was no turning back. By March 6, 2012, the city of Los Angeles was buzzing with the shocking news of Amara Hayes' murder. What began as a quiet morning quickly turned chaotic as local news stations picked up the story. The gruesome details of her death were enough to make headlines, but when whispers of her involvement with Pastor Malachi Grant emerged, the story exploded. Malachi, the charismatic leader of Kingdom of Light Ministries, was known for his fiery sermons and humanitarian efforts. To his congregation, he was untouchable, a man of God. But now his name was linked to scandal and tragedy. Supporters of the church flooded the streets, holding prayer vigils and protesting what they believed was a smear campaign against Malachi. They called it a witch hunt, claiming that someone was trying to destroy a man who had done so much for the community. The church was overwhelmed by phone calls. Reporters camped outside its gates, and Sunday services turned into public declarations of Malachi's innocence. The pressure was mounting, and the investigators knew they had to move quickly. Detectives Elena Morales and Greg Johnson were tasked with uncovering the truth. By March 8, 2012, they had already uncovered a troubling connection between Amara and Malachi. Text messages retrieved from Amara's phone showed frequent communication between the two, and while the language was often cryptic, it hinted at a deep, personal relationship. A text sent just 2 days before her death read, "We can't keep hiding this. Something has to change." This message, combined with Malachi's public status, put him firmly in the spotlight. Malachi was brought in for questioning that same day. He arrived dressed impeccably, his demeanor calm and collected. He denied any inappropriate relationship with Amara, claiming she was merely a young woman he had mentored. He spoke about her potential, her involvement in the church, and how her death was a tragic loss. But Detective Morales noticed the way his hands fidgeted under the table, how his voice faltered when the questions became more specific. Something wasn't adding up. As the investigation deepened, another key player entered the picture: Vanessa Grant, Malachi's wife. For years, Vanessa had been the perfect partner, standing by Malachi's side through every triumph and challenge. But by March 12th, 2012, Vanessa was beginning to question everything she thought she knew about her husband. The public pressure was immense, and reporters hounded her relentlessly. Vanessa had always been good at deflecting questions and maintaining a calm exterior, but inside she was unraveling. On March 15th, 2012, Vanessa found herself in Malachi's home office, searching for documents related to an upcoming church fundraiser. It was then that she stumbled upon a folder buried deep in his desk drawer. Inside were printed emails between Malachi and Amara, dating back over a year. Some were affectionate, others were heated, but one in particular stood out. Sent. Just 3 days before Amara's death, it read, "This can't get out. Do you understand what's at stake?" Vanessa's hands shook as she read the words. She had suspected Malachi's infidelity for years, but had always chosen to look the other way. This, however, was different. This wasn't just an affair. It was a life destroyed, a secret that had spiraled out of control. Over the next 3 days, Vanessa wrestled with her conscience. On March 18th, 2012, she made the decision to turn the emails over to the police. It was a devastating choice, one that meant betraying her husband and exposing herself to public scrutiny. But Vanessa knew it was the right thing to do. With the emails in their possession, the detectives began to piece together a clearer picture of Malachi's double life. Surveillance footage from the hotel showed him entering the lobby on the night of March 5th, 2012, just hours before Amara's death. Witnesses confirmed that he had booked the room under an alias, further implicating him. But there was still one piece missing: someone who could confirm what had happened inside that room. That breakthrough came on March 20th, 2012, when detectives turned their attention to Rachel Fuller, Malachi's personal assistant. Rachel had been by Malachi's side for years, managing his schedule, coordinating church events, and protecting his secrets. But in the weeks following Amara's death, Rachel had become increasingly withdrawn. Detectives noticed inconsistencies in her statements and decided to press harder. Rachel was brought in for a second round of questioning on March 22nd, 2012. For hours, she maintained her innocence, claiming she knew nothing about Amara's death. But as the detectives presented evidence, texts, emails, and surveillance footage, Rachel began to crack. Her confident facade crumbled, and she finally confessed. She revealed that Malachi had called her in a panic on the night of the murder, begging for her help. She had arrived at the hotel to find Amara's lifeless body on the floor. Malachi had ordered her to clean the scene, erasing any evidence that could tie him to the crime. Rachel described every detail, from scrubbing surfaces to disposing of the room key. It was the final piece investigators needed. With Rachel's confession, the case against Malachi was airtight. On March 24th, 2012, he was arrested at his Beverly Hills home. The once revered pastor was led away in handcuffs as cameras captured every moment. The public outcry shifted. Many of his supporters began to question their loyalty, while others clung to the belief that he was innocent. The trial, which began on May 10th, 2012, was a spectacle unlike anything the city had seen. The courtroom was packed with journalists, church members, and curious spectators. The prosecution presented a damning case detailing Malachi's relationship with Amara, his financial misconduct within the church, and the chilling events of the night she died. Emails, texts, and Rachel's testimony painted a picture of a man who had used his power and influence to manipulate those around him. The most emotional moment came when Vanessa took the stand. She spoke about her marriage, describing Malachi's charm and control, his ability to make people believe in him even when they shouldn't. Her testimony was calm and measured, but the pain in her voice was unmistakable. She admitted to turning a blind eye for years, a decision she now deeply regretted. The jury deliberated for only 4 hours. On May 24, 2012, Malachi was found guilty of first-degree murder. The sentence was swift: life in prison without parole. As the verdict was read, the courtroom fell silent, the weight of the moment pressing down on everyone present. For those who had followed Malachi's rise to power, his fall was both shocking and inevitable. Malachi's arrest and conviction left a trail of broken lives, but it also revealed the strength of those who chose to stand for the truth. Vanessa, Rachel, and even Amara's best friend, Tasha, found ways to move forward, determined to ensure that Amara's story would not be forgotten. On May 24, 2012, the courtroom was silent as the verdict was read. Malachi Grant, once a beacon of hope and faith for thousands, was found guilty of first-degree murder. He sat motionless, his usually confident posture replaced with the weight of defeat. The judge's sentence, life in prison without the possibility of parole, marked the end of a long and painful journey for everyone involved. The media frenzy surrounding the trial had left no corner of the city untouched, and as the verdict was broadcast, the reactions were mixed. Some of Malachi's most loyal followers clung to the belief that he had been wronged, while others quietly accepted the truth. The man they had revered was a fraud. Vanessa Grant stood outside the courthouse that day, the warm May sun doing little to ease the chill in her heart. The past months had been a whirlwind of revelations, betrayal, and pain, but also of transformation. Vanessa had once been the dutiful wife, the woman who stood by Malachi no matter what. Now she was something else: a survivor, a fighter, a woman determined to reclaim her identity. By July 2012, Vanessa had begun speaking out against the abuse and corruption she had witnessed during her years as Malachi's wife. She shared her story with organizations that worked to expose the darker sides of religious institutions, using her platform to empower other women who had been silenced. Her calm demeanor and powerful words resonated with many, and soon she became a sought-after speaker at events focused on healing and justice. Vanessa's transformation was remarkable. The woman who had once hidden behind the shadow of her husband now stood tall, her voice steady and clear. At the same time, Tasha Clark, Amara's best friend, was working to ensure that Amara's legacy would not be forgotten. By early 2013, Tasha had launched the Amara Hayes Memorial Scholarship, a program designed to help young women escape abusive environments and pursue their dreams. Fundraisers were held in Amara's name, attended by people who had been touched by her story. The scholarship offered financial aid, mentorship, and a sense of hope to those who needed it most. For Tasha, this was more than a project. It was a way to honor her best friend and make sure that her light continued to shine, even after her untimely death. By 2014, the once grand Kingdom of Light Ministries stood abandoned. The golden chandeliers that had once dazzled congregants were now covered in dust, the pews empty, and the walls cracked and peeling. It was a haunting sight, a stark reminder of the darkness that had existed beneath its glittering surface. Locals avoided the property, calling it cursed, and urban legends began to form about the spirits of those harmed by Malachi's lies. For those who had been closest to the scandal, the abandoned church symbolized both the pain and the lessons learned. It stood as a warning about unchecked power, about the dangers of putting too much faith in one man. Yet, in the shadow of that empty building, lives were being rebuilt. Vanessa, Tasha, and countless others carried Amara's story forward, determined to turn tragedy into change. Though the scars of what had happened would never fully fade, the strength and resilience of those left behind ensured that Amara's legacy would endure. A beacon of hope born from the ashes of betrayal. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on our daily updates. And you can check out another insane case we have. The case where the wife from Dallas, Texas affair with preacher exposed at Christmas dinner ends in murder. Make sure to check it out and let us know your thoughts in the comment section below.